Right, I think we're live. Right, guys, welcome to another TRB Blueprint Success interview. I am joined by Ben Duhigg. Got that right, yeah?
Very good.
Yes. He's kind of going to give us about 15 minutes of his time. So, talk us through his 12-week journey with myself. And yeah, just want to give a quick introduction, Ben, a bit about you, your background, and then we'll dive into some questions.
I'm Ben. I'm 50 years old last year in 2022. I run an advertising agency based in Devon, but with clients all over the country. There's 10 of us in the business, and we had some really tough times in COVID because we had a lot of travel clients. I've got two sons who are 19 and 18, and then the missus as well, who keeps me on the straight and narrow.
And you got some kittens, right? Is that right?
A couple of kittens just before Christmas, yeah. So, yeah, two 5-month-old nutters that are tearing around the house at the minute.
Right, so let's start with, if you can remember, about 3 or so months ago, can you try and paint the picture of like what position you were in, what was going on, and yeah, just try and paint a picture of the challenges you had, basically.
I mean, I can kind of wind it back probably even further. So I think, university times, well, pre-university, never really did any exercise. At university, got into rowing, so got quite fit, and then went into the advertising profession. And my bit of advertising is very booze heavy. So spent years in London eating and drinking like a trooper. Then sort of came down to Devon, set up my own business, busy with running your own company, busy with kids and family life and stress and comfort eating. And then as COVID hit, one of our clients was Concept2 and Wattbike. So I've got friends, So I've got friends in amongst that industry. And so during lockdown, I had a Wattbike in the garage, and this friend of mine from Wattbike encouraged me to get on it and to start training a bit with him. And he's a different league altogether in terms of fitness. And I've got another friend who was looking after himself, and he introduced me to an ex-strength and conditioning coach from Exeter Chiefs, the rugby team. So almost those three over a period of a year got this sort of fat, stressed, comfort eating blob into a sort of a much better state. So I probably went from about 18 stone down to 16-ish. And then as we came out of COVID and went back to normal life, all the crap I used to eat on the motorways came back in, all the crap I used to eat from the bakery around the corner crept back in, and the weight gradually went back up, even though the exercise was happening. So eventually I kind of went up and down like that, and then eventually engaged a personal trainer, a remote one, and sort of did that for a period of 3 months. But really all they did was sort of, they were good guys, but they berated me for what I was eating all the time, and it just felt like I could never succeed. I got fitter over it, but it didn't really it felt like I was just being beaten up for 3 months kind of thing. And then I had a period off in the summer where I just sort of regrouped, did a lot of stuff. I worked with a charity, went on holiday, went to conferences and stuff like that. All the meanwhile, you were in the background, Chris, sort of just chatting to me, how you doing, what's going on. And when I got back from the traveling, I was like, right, something has to change because this weight's going back up again. I'm not on top of it. I need somebody to be policing me. And so I didn't feel so fair about these other guys because of the way I just felt like I was being beaten up by the headmaster the whole time. So I thought I'll try a new voice and found you.
Yeah, I think you were undecided, like, do I go back to these guys or do I try something different, weren't you?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, there was lots of positives in the way they approach things, but it was really a lot about resistance training, weight training, but then an absolute, it's black and white. Either you've done your calories that day or you haven't. And there was no wriggle room for a bloke who runs his own business. And part of that is about being out with clients. And you can't always go out with clients and not drink, because part of what we do and why people like us is because we have a beer with them and we have a laugh. So there's got to be an adaptation to my lifestyle and the job I do.
It's got to be a holistic approach, hasn't it, to
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So that's what I try to do with my clients, which
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll talk about. So
Yeah.
what made you want to join the Resilient Businessman Blueprints? I think you like the behavior change approach, didn't you? That's what I think you said at the start. I'm interested.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was just you and I had an initial call, and I think I got a feeling that you had a slightly different approach. So yes, of course, there's nutrition because that's sort of the bedrock of a lot of it, but there was also behaviour change and there was exercise. And I think I just got the sense that you understood me, you understood people like me, and the pressures we're under, depending, regardless of the business we run, you understand the challenges we're up against in terms of time, family, other commitments, and that sort of stuff.
Mm.
And yeah, and I didn't really understand it or probably clock it as much, but the behaviour, the mindset bit is the big difference on this program. But I think we identified at the time my biggest behaviour issue was almost you do a road trip, you go to a petrol station, buy sandwiches, crisps, and double decker, and off you go again. And that was the bit I couldn't break.
Yeah.
You said yes, I'll be able to help you with that. So I went, well, okay, have a go.
Have a go if you think you're hard enough.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
A lot of people can relate to that. Sorry to bump in there, but like the whole petrol station thing, I hear it time and time again. It's just
Not.
convenient, and there's a lot
Yeah,
of
it is.
in one little meal, isn't there?
Yeah, it is, and I think it's it's such ingrained behaviour. And when you're knackered, you're stressed. You've driven 4 hours to do a 2 hour meeting. You're driving 4 hours home. You know, you want to comfort eat. You want to just fill your body with sort of things that taste great at the time, but then half an hour later, you don't feel so good about yourself.
Mm. So, what's your point of view in terms of men asking for help? Because it's one of the biggest downfalls of what I do was just seeing people come to me at breaking point. You weren't at breaking point because I think you'd already invested before, so you knew the value in actually asking for help.
Yeah.
What's your take on men asking for help? If that makes sense.
We're rubbish.
Yeah.
We just don't do it, do we? And especially people like us who run our own businesses where you're meant to have the answers. You're not meant to show that external weakness. People look to you for advice. So
Yeah.
the fact that you admit that you need some help from other people, we go to an accountant and a lawyer, and people come to me for marketing and advertising. But to say that, I need health and fitness advice, and I think there's a vanity thing about it. We're worried about being seen as vain and that sort of thing, but actually, this is about fitness and mental resilience. I think I was about to say mental health. It's not quite that. It's resilience. I think. So yeah, no, we're hopeless at asking, and I suppose I'd started the journey accidentally with three mates, and I'd begun to see what was possible, and then as that sort of had begun to slow back to what I knew I needed more input to help me. So I suppose, like you say, I had tried it with these other guys, but again, I think that was what that showed me probably was that all I was going to end up doing was constantly having to pay for that sort of support and that nagging. And actually, what it wasn't doing was addressing the underlying issues that were leading to those behaviours.
Yeah, I literally just done another one of these testimonials before, and like people think it's surface level stuff, the diet and exercise, but if you don't solve the root causes, that sabotage the likes of eating better and exercise, then it's never going to work long term, is it?
No, never. No, not at all. And that sabotage, even after 12 weeks, it still kicks in and it still happens. And it's why I've not lost as much as we'd all wanted me to have lost. But at the same time, it's so much better, so much more under control, so much able to spot it and deal with it and address it, sort of thing.
So talk through why this program is different to, of course, what you've tried previously. How would you describe it differently?
I think it's a lot of unpicking the whole mindset and who you are, who you were, and who you want to be, and therefore, once you begin to embrace who you want to be, you can see how that person needs to behave and would behave and should behave. And when you begin to envisage that person, the rest of it becomes really easy. So I'd started doing a bit of running, as you know, before we'd started working together, but always felt like an imposter syndrome whenever I pulled up at the start of a half marathon and stuff. And actually, the fact that I'm even turning up at a half marathon start and I'm doing a sort of 2 hour run is I'm a runner, but I would never see myself as a runner because there's smaller, lighter, faster people. But by working with you, you sort of helped me believe that actually I am a runner, and therefore, what would a runner eat, or what would a runner do, and why would a runner do this? And when you start to behave and think like that, that's a big shift in mindset, and then you can translate that across to, how does the husband or dad that you want to be behave? How does the business leader behave? And all of those bits come together, and that's what makes it quite a different program. I think is if you can start from the root cause of the mind, the other bits fall into place to a greater or lesser degree because you behave like that person.
Yeah. Did you have any concerns before joining the program, if you're being honest?
Yeah, absolutely. Is it just the same as what I've done before, but instead of being in North London, this guy was in the north of England. Nothing against either area of the country, but is it just the same thing in a different package?
Yeah.
Was it going to be another sort of X amount of money down the drain with a sort of a 3 month shift that reverted back to normal? So, but no, and it's just a very gentle program. You don't really realise what's going on as you go along this journey. It's well packaged, it's well paced, and each week builds upon the previous week, and before you know it, you've made some fairly big shifts, I think.
Mm. You said literally, I think, was it this week actually on our last call that somebody said you were unrecognizable, or like you're
Yeah,
in person. Who was that?
yeah. So he's a business consultant we worked with post COVID to try to sort of help us sort of relaunch, reset after the COVID period. And I met him for lunch, and he was like, "Wow, you can see it in my eyes and my physique, just that I had a different sort of energy." And then the guy that runs the charity that I work with literally came into my office last night and said, "Crikey, that run you did at the weekend was bonkers. You're a completely different athlete now. I can't believe that you're doing stuff. So, and you look different and blah, blah, blah." So, yeah, it's nice to get that sort of external recognition and stuff because it sort of affirms what we've been up to in the background.
I think that's when it hits because, like, obviously you see yourself all the time in the mirror, so you can't really see the changes. But when you haven't
No,
seen it for ages and they're just like, "Wow, what's happening here?" That's when it sinks. Like, I've actually
yeah,
changed.
yeah, definitely. And I think people can sense it in the business. I've got a different sort of energy about me at the minute and a different sort of still working hard and still working fast, but there's a different focus and emphasis about me and a more yeah, you've had out all the years. there's a stronger direction and focus about me now.
Mm. And yeah, on projection to have one of the best years in the business because of the
Unbelievable. Yeah,
yeah.
no, I mean, I think some of that's confidence, some of that's sort of that, a bit more self-belief and that sort of stuff, and a bit less imposter syndrome. But we had an amazing December in terms of the amount of business we've written for the year potentially. And then I was literally with the accountant yesterday, and normally the budget's always a little bit like, which side of break even might we be? And this year it was like, well, wow, that's a completely different looking set of numbers. And then if we push on and do the stretch target that we think we can do, and we've reorganised and rebundled everything up, it could be a completely stellar year. So at the minute, I've got a lot of energy and enthusiasm and hope for the year ahead, really.
Because I know that holds a lot of men back in consultations. They don't really spend a lot of money on themselves. So like I've heard some people say the most I've spent on myself is a pair of trainers. And then but they see it as a selfish spend when really it's an investment which has a huge impact on not only yourself but obviously
Yeah,
business performance as well. So you get the return on investment in abundance, don't you?
absolutely. And it's funny because my wife isn't really big into exercise. God forbid she ever sees this. But she's sort of got into it a bit this year. And then she was saying literally last night, I'm really proud of myself. I've exercised, I don't know, 15 of the last 16 days or whatever it was. And I feel quite selfish for giving myself that time to do it. And I said, well,
Yeah, time thing
yeah,
as well, isn't it? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. But I said, if you don't look after yourself, you can't look after anybody else. And she was like, actually, that's absolutely right.
You think that comes from parenthood? I'm not blessed with kids yet, but I think when you're obviously looking after kids all this time, you put yourself on the back burner, don't you?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And I think you always come second to your kids. You'd always do something for your kids. And rightly so. I mean, that's what we've done for the last 20 odd years kind of thing. But actually looking back, it's hard. I think it's hard as a dad because you get little enough time with your kids anyway by the time you've been out to work or you've been away with work and so on and so forth. So you kind of want to capture those moments you've got with them. And therefore, do you take an hour out to exercise or to do this, that, and the other? So that's a tricky one to argue. But could I have sometimes got up earlier or stayed up a bit later and done something? Probably. Would I have eaten more healthily? Probably. But I also think now it's about setting an example, isn't it? I've got two young men who are mates, who are my sons, and actually, I don't want them to get to 49 before they start to look after themselves. And if I set an example, this is what we do as healthy, intelligent wise individuals, then that's hopefully, I'm setting a standard that they can sort of look at and see as normal.
That's a big part of the ethos behind what we do. It's setting the standard, isn't it? As a man, as a business owner, it all
Yeah,
comes from us. Like we've got such a big part to play in our lives as business owners,
yeah, exactly.
working underneath you, etc. So, what would you say is the standout breakthrough for you in this journey in the past 12 weeks? What comes to your mind?
There's probably two things. One would be one of the mindset models you do, which is, what does Ben 1.0 look like? What does Ben 2.0 look like?
Yeah, so we future pace at the start to get clarity on who it is we want to become, don't we?
Yeah.
And then
And
that's
that was,
start to turn. It's like shit. It's like,
yeah,
well,
and that's it. And I think in terms of, that constant, I get fit, I lose weight, I put on weight. I get fit and lose weight, I put on weight. That vision of what Ben 2.0 looks like, and how, excuse my French, but you haven't sworn much this time, but how pissed off would I be if in 6 months' time I'm back to Ben 1.0 again? This has got to be, although it's a bumpy journey down with the weight loss, this has got to be a one-way trajectory. It cannot go back the other way again. So, and that was a real moment of clarity. And then I think just my eyes and ears were open. So I listened to a podcast with Chris Robshaw, and we've talked about it a lot, haven't we? What do you do when people aren't watching?
yeah.
And I've done an extra lot of blinking mileage. I've trained when I didn't feel like training because no one was watching, but because I wanted to be that runner. I wanted to be that fitter person. I wanted to be that healthier person. Actually, if I'm running 4 miles, I might as well do 5. If I'm running 3, I'll do 4. If I'm on the bike for 30, I might as well do 45. It's all those little bits of extra, and it's that mindset, that strength, that resilience, I suppose.
Mm.
So yeah, I think those two things really. So yeah, one was definitely part of the program. One was as a result of being more alert to it, and then applying it to what you were encouraging me to get on with.
Mm. So try and list off some highlights, like what's been the results. So obviously got weight loss, etc. But what do you think's been the standout results?
Well, time with yourself, obviously. Weekly, that's been great. I think, joking aside, having a chat with you once a week has been really good because you've listened, you ask open questions,
Mm.
and it makes me reflect not just about, well, why did you eat that cake on Wednesday? It's more like, how was your week? What's been good? What's been bad? And we talk around things. So it's not like you're sticking to a script each time and you just got to get me through that call as quickly and as efficiently as you can. You listen, you understand, and you advise. And it's been bigger and broader than just weight loss and fitness and have you got sculpted pecs and six pack, neither of which we got, but that's fine. It doesn't matter. So I think there's that, and you've helped me with sort of just chatting about business and life and that sort of stuff. But then, there's the tangibles. So there's the whole mindset shift. So I can't remember when I last had a double decker or a Twix. We ran the program over Christmas, didn't we? Which was, I had 16 Christmas parties.
16 Christmas parties. He still lost a stone, so
yeah, exactly. And it's to have done it then is hard for your stats, and it's been really hard to apply it in that nutty period of going out and drinking and dining and that sort of stuff. But what a great time to do it, because if I can control things better then the rest of the year becomes all right. And also it means that Christmas doesn't become a little black hole that I can write off every year.
I think personally, for what your individual challenges were, it was perfect timing because obviously you'd been from a strict program where it's regimented, you've got to do this, to where me, I'm a bit more flexible. So that was the test over Christmas to really understand that I can enjoy myself and still lose weight at the same time. So
yeah, exactly. And then there's the amount of training I've done. You gently suggested I might like to think about, without telling me I should, book into an event, and I ran this ridiculous Cornish North Coast half marathon on Saturday, which is in January. So ridiculous winds, mud, rain, water, climbs, just the most outrageous thing in the world. And I had a blast. Absolutely loved it. Came about halfway in the whole pack, halfway in my age category blokes, and I've signed up, I think, almost for next year already now. So it's, I think the belief to even just turn up on the day and have a go, that my ambition was just to finish it and see how resilient I was mentally. But actually, I was slugging out with other runners quite happily, and I had more in the tank probably. So I think that was a real tangible proof of what we've achieved in the last 12 weeks, despite Christmas. And because I had it booked in for the 14th of January, bugger me, I was out there running over Christmas in dark, in ice, in mud and rain and everything. I just kept plugging away because I had something to aim for.
That's it. Like, we've talked about this, so I interrupt, but like the importance of the deadline, it makes you take action, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
That's what keeps people procrastinating. They don't have deadlines in place to aim for. So, yeah.
And I definitely ended up spending a vast amount of money on trainers, running tops, other gadgets and bits and pieces to go from running on tarmac half marathons to, a close path half marathon is a bit of a different gravy. So yeah, definitely a good spend up on that sort of stuff.
So we're currently about 1.75, aren't we? We're not the 2.0 yet. We're still we've got a conversation booked in next week to talk about what we're going to do after the 12 weeks together. Yeah. So what would you say to somebody who's sitting on the fence? Of course, there's a lot of programs out there that people's tried God knows what, and you've tried strict stuff in the past. Like, what would your take be to somebody who's sitting on the fence, they want help, but they're like, oh, I don't want to do that kind of shit again?
It's that old phrase, isn't it? When's the best time to plant a tree? 10 years ago. When's the next best time? Today. So just don't muck around and just get on with it, really, because the sooner you start, the sooner you're on a different sort of trajectory and program, and yeah, you won't look back. Just get on with it.
So you'd recommend it, yeah?
Just do it, as Nike say.
Just do it, as Nike say.
Yeah. I can't rate it highly enough. It's been a great program, and I thought it was just going to be about fitness and nutrition, but it's been so much more than that. And I'm not trying to downplay the fitness and nutrition because that is in there, but it's a bigger, broader thing. And if you get to my stage of life, with 40s, 50s, or whatever, and you've got lots of ingrained behaviours from a kid, and then a whole different sort of career, and not really understanding or appreciating it, you can't just fix that by buying a book or watching a YouTube video. You've got to have somebody that guides you through that behaviour change and puts in place different habit stacks, different ways of looking at things, and you can't do that alone. So it worked for me, and I'm sure it's worked for lots of other people I know. So yeah, crack on.
And that just highlights the point that age is just a number. Guys in the 50s think, oh, I can't change now, but you certainly can't you, if you dive deep enough.
Definitely, and you feel better for it. People around you notice it. You feel better about yourself. I've got more energy. I'm packing more into my day. I'm more focused, more driven, more determined. Yeah, it's been good.
Happy days. Right, on that positive note, appreciate your time, Ben, as always. And yeah, thanks for your time. And hopefully you've inspired somebody to change their life. And I'll see you next week. What are you doing?
Brilliant. All right, thanks, Chris.
Cheers, mate.